You're tuned in to More Living with Jim Brogan, broadcast live from the Brogan Financial Studios at News Talk 98.7, where old-fashioned values, expert knowledge, and genuine understanding come together to give you the retirement straight talk you deserve. Jim's a former National Advisor of the Year recipient and a financial educator, and he's here today to talk about how you can live out the best years of your life. Jim and the Brogan Financial team have been helping retirees and pre-retirees across the Southeast for over 20 years in their pursuit of financial independence. You can reach them during the week at 865-862-6800. So sit back, relax, and get ready to learn, because More Living with Jim Brogan starts now.
Happy Saturday. Welcome to More Living with Jim Brogan, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. This is News Talk 98.7 WOKI, and to live our best life, you know we've got to focus regularly on our health and on ways to improve it. And one common thread in general health advice is to get a good night's sleep. How important is that? How do we know if we're truly getting a good night's sleep? And March is Sleep Awareness Month. So for the first half of this show, we're going to talk about good sleep habits. Now, in the second half of the show, March is also Colon Cancer Awareness Month, and we're going to talk about a healthy colon. So we're really going to focus on our health this week. And our first guest is Dr. Alok Sadeva. And Dr. Sadeva is a board-certified specialist in sleep medicine with Summit Medical Group Sleep Services. So good morning, Dr. Sadeva. Welcome to More Living.
Having me on.
Yes, absolutely. So let's kind of dive right in. First, how important is a good night's sleep?
Sleep is very important. A good way to think about the importance of sleep is to look at what can happen if you don't get enough sleep. And this has been studied rigorously over the years. We know that not sleeping enough can cause impaired cognition, can cause poor attention, a slowed reaction time, irritability, sleepiness, and all of those things. It's easy to see how those things can cause work performance issues, accidents, injuries. And so for all those reasons, sleeping enough is very, very important. And also getting good quality sleep. Some folks will, feel like they're sleeping for a long time, but still wake up exhausted because that sleep is not a good quality sleep. In addition to those, mental and cognitive issues that can arise by not sleeping enough, there are good studies that show associations between insufficient sleep and certain health problems, some of which include high blood pressure, heart disease, weight gain and obesity, metabolic disturbances. So without a doubt, sleep is an extremely important thing to living a healthy life.
So let's kind of define a good night's sleep a little bit. First off, talk about the timely. It's funny because some people, it seems like what most people need for a good night's sleep time-wise. Is it 6 hours? Is it 8 hours? Is it 7? I mean, what do you see as the most common thing of how people can learn what is the truly a good night's sleep in terms of the time that they're asleep?
That's a great question. And there are recommendations from different organizations, such as the National Sleep Foundation, for the best amount of sleep, based on age. It's usually broken down by age. What you find is as the age declines, the age group being looked at declines, the amount of sleep recommended increases. So, an adult recommended sleep time between 7 and 9 hours. As you march down to, say, toddlers, it's 11 to 14 hours. And then newborns, 14 to 17 hours, probably on the higher end of that range. And so that gives you kind of a benchmark, right? So most adults needing 7 to 9 hours. Now, let's say someone sleeps 6 hours and feels well when they wake up. That's not a cause for concern. There is variation in how much sleep folks need, which can reach outside of these recommended ranges. In fact, there are groups of folks that we call short sleepers in sleep medicine that, we know feel well and maintain good health with less sleep. So we kind of have to keep an open mind and be aware of what works for us. But for most adults, a good benchmark for sleep duration is about 7 to 9 hours.
So how can we create a good sleep environment?
A good sleep environment, I would think about three foundational tenets. You want your sleep environment or your bedroom to be dark, quiet, and cool. So if I look at those things one by one, bright lights will wake up the brain or keep the brain awake. And so you want your sleep environment to be dark enough to promote sleep. And there are some very useful ways people could think about employing to enhance the darkness of the bedroom, whether it's blackout shades or some other kind of way to keep light out at the windows, or using something like an eye mask. I've had some patients that had insomnia and literally turned it around just by using an eye mask to keep ambient light from disrupting their sleep. The noise level in a room, there's, I would say, peaceful and calming noise, and then there's disruptive noise. And so if you're one of those people that needs a white noise machine or a rain machine, that's okay, and that can really do a lot of good. There's not only white noise.
My wife and I over the years have gotten where we don't like it to be just totally quiet. We like to have just a little bit of that peaceful noise.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that started earlier in our marriage. She liked to have a fan on, like a box fan, and I think we got so used to that small noise, and when we don't have something, it kind of like, oh my gosh, it's too quiet.
Yeah. After a while, no noise can be disruptive in its own way, So yeah, that's very common, and there's actually something called brown noise as well, which is it's white noise, but they distill out the lower frequencies, which are kind of a little more soothing. So it's that can really be helpful and enhance sleep quality. The last point, the temperature in the room. That's another area, Jim, where you were mentioning you and your wife figuring things out with the fan. That's another area where spouses will often have different, and thermostats and kind of need different temperatures. And so there's no magic temperature, but it's important to know that sleep and falling asleep is a cooling process. The body cools during sleep. So just avoid excessively hot temperatures in the bedroom, and then fine-tuning, different blankets or sheets and things like that can really help, to get it just right for you.
March is Sleep Awareness Month, and we're visiting with Dr. Sadeva from over at Summit Medical Group Sleep Services. Dr. Sadeva, what about what we do before we go to bed? I mean, how important is that last 30 to 60 minutes in terms of our activity or being on a computer, watching TV, reading a book, and how does that affect our ability to go to sleep?
That last 30 to 60 minutes before sleep can really be critical in promoting a good night's sleep. It's thought that over half of Americans in the hour preceding their sleep time are using some kind of device which often will emit very bright light and blue light. And so particularly nowadays is a very important thing to think about. Just stay on the topic of light. Dimming devices can make a huge difference, just dimming them down, putting them on night mode. Some people will go ahead and buy blue light blocking lenses, which sometimes can give added benefit, especially if there's not a way to dim light, say on a bright television or something. But In addition to making sure that you're not exposed to excessively bright light, there's some basic behaviors in the hours leading up to bedtime that can promote good sleep, and a couple of those are avoid heavy meals, avoid vigorous exercise, and avoiding or not using any alcohol or nicotine. All of those things can certainly promote a better night's sleep. So definitely important to give some thought to that and see if little changes can be made that could, give you a lot of benefit.
We're visiting with Dr. Alok Saldava, and when we come back, I want to talk about the importance of our rhythms and when we go to bed, when we wake up, and the consistency of that, and how daylight savings time fits into all of that. So stay with us as March is National Sleep Month. You're listening to More Living with Jim Brogan right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Welcome back to News Talk 98.7's Brogan Financial Studios, where Jim Brogan is coming to you live with important news and advice to help you achieve your dream retirement. Get ready to learn and live. Here's your host, Jim Brogan.
Welcome back to More Living here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. I'm Jim Brogan. We're talking about sleep. March is Sleep Awareness Month, and a good night's sleep is so important. We're visiting with Dr. Alok Saldava. He is a board-certified sleep specialist. Doctor, what are the most common sleep disorders? The number one that jumps to my mind is sleep apnea, but what are some of the most common ones you see?
Yes, obstructive sleep apnea is very common. I would say if I had to pick two common sleep disorders, most common, I would say insomnia and obstructive sleep apnea. And, insomnia, some estimate, up to 30% of adults are struggling with that at any given time, and up to 10% with chronic insomnia lasting 3 months or longer. When you look at obstructive sleep apnea, because there is a big difference between rates in men and women, you have to break it down by population. The prevalence always depends on the population. So in men, up to 20 to 30% of men have obstructive sleep apnea, and up to 10 to 20% of women. And so these are, I think, much more common conditions than people are aware of, and important things to think about. Restless leg syndrome is also estimated at 5 to 10% prevalence, which if you think about it, it's a big number. So but certainly I would say insomnia and obstructive sleep apnea are probably two of the most common sleep disorders.
So everybody can get a little bit run down and exhausted from time to time. When do you know it's time to seek a medical opinion?
I would recommend that folks consider medical advice when, let's say, tiredness or sleepiness becomes very persistent. Like you said, Jim, it's very normal to sometimes feel run down, and then the next day you're feeling better, you're back to normal. When that drained feeling becomes a daily struggle, that would be a good time to seek expert advice. And then certainly if it gets to a point where it's causing some kind of functional impairment in your life, whether it's social or occupational or other, by all means, that's a good time to see if medical advice can lead to resolution of the problem.
Well, I just want to give a testimonial here. I've been on a BiPAP machine for 15 years now, and yep. I knew I had sleep apnea, and I didn't want to get the diagnosis, and I drove off the road going to Crossville. And there's a lot of places you could drive off the road going to Crossville, and it wouldn't end too well. And I was very, very fortunate and blessed to survive that, and knew I needed to get checked. And as I've lost weight since then, my settings have come down. But, man, I don't ever go without my machine. So, it really, I'd probably saved my life. I don't think I'd be here today without that. Let's talk about our rhythms, our sleep rhythms. Doctor, I know that they say going to bed and waking up at a similar time every day. At least you hear that that's very important. What about sleeping in on a Saturday or taking a power nap? How does that all play in? And kind of along that line, the Senate just voted to extend daylight savings time permanently. We'll see if
Yes.
that ends up getting passed into law. You like that the time changes disrupt our rhythms. So can you just talk about those rhythms?
Yeah, absolutely. I can touch first on the question about power naps and sleeping in, and what I'll say about that quickly is that it's while those, a good power nap, say 15, 20 minutes, can be extremely helpful and a good thing. An excessively long nap, can disrupt the circadian rhythm and can make it difficult then to fall asleep that night. So you got to be careful with that. A lot of people will work really hard during the week, sleep not enough, and then try to catch up on the weekend. And it's generally true that doesn't work. To recover from insufficient sleep, you really need consistent, good quality sleep of adequate duration. And so those are very important points. The Senate passed, I think it was on March 15th, the Sunshine Protection Act, which was put forth by Senator Rubio. And so that is, like you said, Jim, and that was intended to keep us on a permanent daylight savings time. What's interesting about that new bill is that historically, we have been here before. So when daylight savings time first became a thing in 1918, it was actually repealed in 1919 because people just didn't like it. And so we've been down this road before. It came back in the 40s and then was really solidified in the 60s. But now here we are with the Sunshine Protection Act, which I think it's unanimously passed in the Senate, and I think Americans in general, like this idea. What the American Academy of Sleep Medicine has done since then is they've released a statement saying that rather than permanent daylight savings time, let's look at permanent standard time. And that ties directly into circadian health. The reason for that comment, which is being looked at by the House, is because standard time is less misaligned with our kind of natural circadian rhythms. Essentially, a brighter day and a darker evening and darker night promote healthy circadian rhythms and promote a healthy life. And so it's thought that accepting a permanent standard time essentially is more in line with that, that known fact about our circadian rhythms. And so that's I think, going to continue to be discussed, and it'll be interesting to see where that falls,
Well, that is interesting because we love it being light. My wife and I have always, in our family, have always loved it being light later in the day, but I completely can understand in that context that as it gets darker a little bit earlier, it's easier to get in that sleep rhythm.
Yes. And so I received a notice recently that a letter was sent, I think, to Secretary Buttigieg, Department of Transportation, from the House, requesting information on, how would a permanent daylight savings time impact commerce and, road safety and things of that nature. So it's definitely an ongoing discussion, and it's going to be interesting to see where this goes.
That'll be real interesting. Well, Dr. Sadeva, how can people get hold of you? How can our listeners reach you if they want to get a consultation?
Sure. To your listeners, I would say if you have questions about sleep, if you're struggling with sleep, reach out to Summit Sleep Services. Our phone number here is 865-909-0744, and we're always here, happy to help you.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to to talk to us about what is really a very, very important issue for our health.
Thank you, Jim. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. That's Dr. Alok Sadeva, and he's with Summit Medical Group Sleep Services. Now, March is also Colon Cancer Awareness Month. So when we come back, we're going to have Dr. Johnny Altiwill joining the show to talk to us about good colon health and cancer prevention. So stay with us. This is More Living with Jim Brogan. We'll also have our dollars and cents segment and why your medical costs in the future could become an even bigger concern with the current inflationary issues. So stay with us right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Welcome back to News Talk 98.7's Brogan Financial Studios, where Jim Brogan is coming to you live with important news and advice to help you achieve your dream retirement. Get ready to learn and live. Here's your host, Jim Brogan.
Welcome back. This is More Living with Jim Brogan, where it's all about living the best years of your life your way. We're on every Saturday, 9 to 10, again 3 to 4 in the afternoon, right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. You can also catch all of our podcasts. All of our shows are podcast, as well as our dollars and cents segments and our retirement minutes. You can go to broganfinancial.com and click on radio. We're talking about health, and for this last half of the show, March is also Colon Cancer Awareness Month. So in just a moment, we're going to be speaking with a local doctor here about our colon health. Before we do get to that subject, however, it is time for dollars and cents.
Want to be sure you are getting the most out of your retirement? For all the years of your retirement? That's the primary goal of More Living with Jim Brogan and our Dollars and Cents segment, where we provide you with an important financial tip that will help positively impact the quality of your life in retirement. And now, here's Jim with this week's Dollars and Cents tip.
How might inflation affect your medical costs 20 years from now? You know, even a brief period of inflationary pressure will more than likely have a long-term impact on your healthcare costs. There's a new study out from HealthView Services, which is a leading provider of retirement healthcare cost data, and it says that current and future retirees should expect healthcare costs to claim an even bigger part of your budget. So I know those of you that are retired or getting ready to draw Social Security or drawing Social Security were pleased with the 5.9% cost of living adjustment, but then probably pretty shocked to see Medicare premiums increase by 15% for the same period. And the principal driver of escalating medical expenses is healthcare inflation. So here's the concern. Healthcare costs are also going up rapidly, just like inflation is. Typically, healthcare costs go up at about a rate double the inflation rate, and that's what's happened in the last year. Inflation's, they're up about 15%. And see, the problem is, while other areas in our economy, like, for example, gas prices, food prices, they can go way up, but then they can reset back down a little. With medical inflation, historically, it has not happened that way. When they go up, they stay up and then increase from there. So if we have a couple of years at 15% inflation for medical expenses, then that resets the number higher, quite a bit higher. And even if it comes back down, it then goes, if inflation number comes back down, it's still increasing costs from that new baseline, if that makes sense. So what this means is, the average 65-year-old needed up until now, up until about a year ago, we figured would spend close to about $290,000 over your remaining lifetime in medical costs. Now that's to pay for your Medicare premiums and any out-of-pocket costs. So $290,000. Just in the last year, that has increased to $340,000. So it's gone up by $50,000 over the course of your lifetime. So what that means is, as has been mentioned in this study, is that healthcare costs are likely to become a bigger and bigger part of your budget. You provide for that. You plan for that with your income plan. your income plan, how you provide structured and stable income in the short term that doesn't depend on stock market conditions in the short term, but yet can provide you growth of income in the long term to fight inflation and to fight medical costs. That becomes even more important in your income plan.
That's our Dollars and Cents segment for this week. You can find this week's Dollars and Cents segment and others by visiting BroganFinancial.com.
Do check us out at BroganFinancial.com. I have a new class coming out. It's a tax planning class. And that class is here the first Thursday in April. And I would love to see you there. It is a one-night class at Pellissippi State Community College. I'm sorry, it is on Tuesday, April the 5th. Tax Planning in the New Age. It's a 2-hour session. It'll focus exclusively on how can you save money on taxes in retirement. It's the number one expense you and I will ever have in our lifetimes. Typically blows away the medical costs, our tax costs do. So I'd love to see you there. For my full list of upcoming classes at local universities for adult education, you can go to BroganFinancial.com and click on classes. We now have Dr. Johnny Altiwill. He is board certified in internal medicine as a gastroenterology specialist. He's at the Endoscopy Center. As I mentioned, March is also Colon Cancer Awareness Month. Good morning, doctor. Welcome to More Living.
Good morning, Jim, and good morning to you and your listeners, and thank you for having me on your show.
It's great to have you. Not many people get excited about the prospects of getting our colons checked and starting a colonoscopy. I know I'm 52, and so 2 years ago when I turned 50, it was time. That was when I was told I needed to get my first colonoscopy. I know it can vary for different people. But why don't we start there? What is the best age for screenings, and how might family history affect that?
So it's very important to understand that the majority of colorectal cancers, they are sporadic rather than familial. So you may be, having no symptoms and having a colon cancer. It's crucial to follow the guidelines for colon cancer check. So last year in 2021, the guidelines have changed. The American Cancer Society and United States Task Force have recommended to start screening at the age of 45, and that's for people who are average risk. So we highly recommend to every person, even if you're having no symptoms, to start your check at age 45.
Okay, and so that just changed. Now, luckily, my 50-year-old screening was pretty good screening and healthy. But when I was doing all that, doctor, and I want to just verify this, I was told that colon cancer is a cancer that really is completely preventable with screenings. Is that right? And why is that?
The majority of colon cancers can be prevented through screening. Jim, colon cancer is a major problem. Every year there is more than 150,000 new cases of colon cancer in the United States. And most of these colon cancers happen in the colon. The third of them happen in the rectum. And about 90 to 95% of these cases start by just simple colon polyps. And when we do screening with the different modalities, we're trying to aim to discover these polyps and hopefully remove these polyps. And by eliminating these polyps, we reduce the risks, dramatically for developing colon cancer. And there are several modalities for colon cancer screening that can fit each and every person.
So let's talk about the screenings. There are non-invasive screening tests being advertised on TV. Are those good at detecting precancerous cells, or is the colonoscopy still the gold standard?
So there are several ways of checking for colon cancer. There are non-invasive testing, as you mentioned. The first few are stool test based, and the old one is the fecal occult blood test. The newer one is the fecal immunochemical test, which also checks for blood. And a few years ago, the multi-targeted stool DNA test, which is called Cologuard currently, has been advertised in clinical practice. These tests screen for the presence of either blood or altered DNA in the stool. There are also some imaging studies like barium NMS or a specific CAT scan. We call it a CT colonography or CT colography. And these also take x-rays of the abdomen, particularly the colon. And then we have the invasive testing, which mainly nowadays is performed through a colonoscopy. We have to understand that all the non-invasive testing, they detect either advanced polyps or colon cancer that may be late in the game. We always, we hope patients, do more colonoscopies because that checks for colon cancer, checks for colon polyps, and also has the advantage of removing these polyps and clearing the colon from these pre-malignant cells. It helps to diagnose and also to prevent colon
So
cancer.
if we're doing our screenings regularly with our colonoscopies, I guess I guess because those polyps, once a polyp forms, it takes it takes a number of years to develop into cancer, correct?
Yes, unless people are very unfortunate to have genetic abnormalities that puts them at a very high speed of having colon cancer. There's some abnormalities, believe it or not, colon cancers may develop within a year.
Oh, wow.
These are not common, but we also are in the look for these cases. We call them polyposis syndromes, and Lynch syndrome is a famous one. Familial adenomatous polyposis is another one, and most recently we've been dealing with serrated polyposis syndrome. These four, they probably account for 3 to 4% of cases of colon cancer.
We're visiting with Dr. Johnny Altiwill, and colorectal cancer is the second leading cause of cancer death among men and women combined in the United States. When we come back, we're going to get into ways to maximize the health of the colon, and what should you be looking for, when you have stomach aches and things like that. So just general overall good health habits. So stay with us as we visit with Dr. Johnny Altiwill. He is board certified in internal medicine as a gastroenterology specialist over at the Endoscopy Center. You're listening to More Living with Jim Brogan here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI.
Welcome back to News Talk 98.7's Brogan Financial Studios, where Jim Brogan is coming to you live with important news and advice to help you achieve your dream retirement. Get ready to learn and live. Here's your host, Jim Brogan.
This is More Living right here on News Talk 98.7 WOKI. We're visiting with Dr. Johnny Altiwill. He is over at the Endoscopy Center here in town, and he is a gastroenterology specialist. March is Colon Cancer Awareness Month. Doctor, what are the best ways to promote good colon health? Is diet the number one preventer of colon cancer?
So, Jim, along with following the screening guidelines, diet is crucial, exercise is crucial. And let's talk a little bit about that. So we have a huge body of evidence that eating a diet that is high in red and processed meat, diet that is high in saturated fat and trans fat increases the risk of colon polyps, and we think that also increases the risk of colon cancer. We think that diet that is high in dietary fiber, diet is colorful, eating a lot of colored food, also decreases the incidence of colon polyps and eventually the colon cancer.
So fruits and vegetables.
Yes, they're crucial.
which we know, of course.
Mm-hmm. There's some data from the World Cancer Research Fund studies that for every 10 grams for increasing every 10 grams of fiber in your daily diet, there is about 10% reduction of colon cancer risk.
To increase fiber, sometimes people take fiber supplements. Do those make our colons lazy if we take like a Metamucil or some other fiber supplement?
Absolutely not. They don't make the colon lazy, and actually they have many helpful properties. So, fiber can accelerate your bowel transit time, which increases the frequency of your bowel movements and make them regular. They reduce the pressure inside the colon and intestines, and they produce softer and bulkier stool, and they help to cleanse the bowels. They don't make the colon lousy.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. I had thought that that was a I guess that was a myth that I thought. Um, Now, I do want to ask you, you said processed red meat. Talk about organic meats and grass-fed versus grain-fed. Does that really make a difference, or in terms of our colon health, or is this just all about not eating too much red meat?
Yes. So the key factor is not to consume a lot of red meat. I'm sure the more healthier choices, the cleaner cuts of meat, the meats that are less, they have the less fat in them. Probably they're better for your health. But Jim, as everything in life, everything in moderation is good. So just limit. We advise our patients to limit their consumption of red meat, to pleasure food. Focus on a lot of white meat, chicken, poultry, fish, and also to increase the consumption of plant-based proteins. There are a lot of sources for protein that you can get through the diet: whole grains, whole wheat stuff, dried beans, peas, corns, and fresh fruits and vegetables that provide a lot of alternatives to just red and processed meat.
I have to admit to you, Dr. Altiwill, I love red meat and I love to cook and
We
grill
all
and
do.
smoke meat. Yeah, I probably need to cut back a little bit. Everyone has an occasional stomach ache after eating something that doesn't really quite agree with us. What are some of the signs or symptoms that, something's not quite right in my colon and I might need to see the doctor?
That's true. We all have these pains and aches every now and then, but you are the best doctor for yourself. Each person know their body very well. But I tell patients, always pay attention to your bowel habits. Change in bowel habits is the most common symptom of colon cancer. If you feel your bowels have changed, you have more frequency, the stool caliber has changed, you have more flat stool, pencil-sized stool. That's very important to report to your doctor. Also, the seeing blood in stool, it's very specific for problems. Red blood, especially the dark red blood, it's not good. So if you see blood in your stool, you have to tell your doctor about that. Abdominal pain, if it persists, feeling an abdominal mass, that's always something you have to report to your doctor. Weight loss that is unintentional, it's also is something that we have to keep a look at. So if you feel anything has changed, it's a time to talk to your doctor. Don't be shy. Bring it up to your doctor's attention and let the specialist evaluate you.
Yeah, always be in tune. I like what you said there about we are our own best doctor and being really into, and observant of what's going on in our own bodies and when there are changes, and don't put things off if there might be an issue. Now, Doctor, the American Cancer Society estimates that there will be over 100,000 new colorectal cancer cases in the United States in 2022. What is the prognosis for someone that is diagnosed with colon cancer?
So the number actually, it's more than 150,000 cases every year. So it's a lot more. The key factor is early detection. If we diagnose a patient with early colon cancer, it is almost always we almost always look for cure. And on the other hand, if unfortunately we diagnose the case advanced and metastatic, it's usually non-curable. So early detection saves lives. Most early cancers are preventable through screening, and even if you develop early colon cancer, we can save your life.
Now, aren't incidence rates higher in men than women, and why is that?
So the colon cancer is about 25% higher in male than in female. And also, believe it or not, it is also racial. So there's approximately 20% higher incidence in African Americans than in white Americans. And we don't clearly understand the differences. We think, it could be hormonal. Because there's some observational studies and research studies that talk about the effects of some hormonal replacement or history of some female cancer that affects the incidence. We don't really understand it well, but certainly we are on the look for everybody.
Are there great things on the horizon in terms of treatment for people that have colon cancer?
Yes. So for rectal cancer managed a little different than colon cancer. If we catch cancers early, for rectal cancers, it could be as easy as chemo or radiation therapy. For colon cancers, in most cases, the early cases, we do surgery. And during the surgery and the preoperative checkups with imaging studies and stuff, then after the surgery, we decide if patients will need to have any adjuvant chemotherapy. And then the surveillance goes through the lifetime of the person with follow-ups of imaging studies and blood works and regular visits with your gastroenterologist and oncologist. And there's always new treatments on the horizon. Now we have a lot of oral hormonal therapies that have changed lives of many, many people and put a lot of people into more of a remission.
Dr. Altiwill, you're with the Endoscopy Center. If somebody wants more information or wants to get in contact, can they reach out directly to the Endoscopy Center, or is that something where they need to go through their primary care physician?
Absolutely. We do everything we can at the Endoscopy Center and Gastrointestinal Associates to spread the word about colon cancer, to prevent cancer deaths. I would like to invite every person here in town to join us for our 50th anniversary this coming Wednesday. It's between 4 and 6:30 p.m. It's at our main office. It's in Dowell Spring. It's 1311 Dowell Springs Boulevard.
Right there off of Middlebrook Pike.
Yes, we're having a lot of fun. You're going to have a chance to meet Nolan, the rolling colon. It's an inflatable, huge colon that you can walk through. Hopefully all the 14 doctors will be there to talk to you guys about your symptoms, and we can schedule appointments. Our phone number is 865-588-5121. You can call us directly. Most of the time, you don't have to go through your doctor for an appointment or for a colonoscopy. We're here to help everyone.
Okay, so that's this Wednesday you're having that, and that is over at your main office off of Middlebrook Pike in Dowell Springs, and that's 4 to 6:30 on Wednesday. People can call 588-5121. Dr. Johnny Altiwill with the Endoscopy Center, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to share some great wisdom with us today.
Thank you, Jim, and happy Saturday to everyone.
Yes, sir. That's Dr. Johnny Altiwill. He's with the Endoscopy Center again this Wednesday, 4 to 6:30 at their main office there off at Dowell Springs off Middlebrook Pike. You can get more information at 588-5121. Today we've discussed all kinds of different health, sleep health, colon health, because greater health provides for more living so you can live the best years of your life your way. Thank you, Chris, for engineering the show. Many thanks to Jill for producing the show. Have a blessed weekend. You've been listening to More Living with Jim Brogan, only on the News and Talk of East Tennessee, News Talk 98.7, WOKI. Have a very blessed weekend.
The views expressed by Jim Brogan and his guests are not that of Cumulus Media. Any discussion of financial, legal, and tax planning strategies is not intended to be individualized advice and is general in nature. Always consult with your advisor for advice specific to your needs. This program's content does not represent a recommendation of any particular security, strategy, or investment by Jim Brogan or Brogan Financial Incorporated.